I'm delighted to announce that this roundtable, after 1 year running this and more than 300 agencies, is officially sponsored by my good friends at Gorgeous. Gorgeous are the #1 rated help desk for Shopify merchants, and they work with almost 6,000 brands across the globe. In the agency that I ran, Gorgeous were a key part of my tech stack. So this is not a sales pitch by any stretch of the imagination. For me, for all the agencies that I work with, most of them have Gorgeous built in, whether it was through me, through my recommendation, or on their own, because it is a fantastic bit of kit. And it's such an easy sell when you build it in as part of a retainer model. So I'm extremely grateful to be able to go from the agency world and working with Gorgeous very closely, and now in the work that I do with agencies, still having them support me. So anyway, enjoy this roundtable. The roundtable here is a group of agencies getting together to really share some of their learnings, some of their challenges, what's working, what's not working, and brainstorm with each other. And at the end of this, I'll follow up with a little bit about how I build technologies into my tech stack, and how that's a good way to bring in revenue, commission. I have an agency that brings in about €20,000 on a monthly basis just on commissions from some of the tech stacks they work with. So it's definitely a nice little learner if you're doing it properly. So enjoy the roundtable, and I will catch you on the other end.
Hey, Michael's here.
Hey, Felicia.
Great. Hey.
Oh man, I don't know what is going on. I feel like everybody needs like a holiday, a break, a vacation, something. Everybody is just burnt the fuck out. It is insane. Insane. Did Michael just disappear?
Yeah, he literally walked away as he was saying hi.
He literally just bounced. What a asshole. Sure, we all knew that anyway.
Here, I gotta go. Bye.
Peace out, motherfuckers. I'm out of here. That is so funny. So yes, I'm a little bit late because of that reason. So apologies. It was emotional. Everybody's feeling I don't know what it is about my energy. People are like, Rachel can handle it. And I'm just like, oh, fuck. Oh. Everybody just needs a vacation. Anyway, enough about me. Tell me something about me. No, I'm joking. Tell me how fantastic I am. Well, thanks for joining. I am going to kick things off very quickly because I'm a little bit late. Some of you have got an email this morning about my boot camp, but before that, I'm really, really excited after a year of running this roundtable, there's over 300 agencies that have come through here. And my very good friends at Gorgeous, I've worked with them for years. They wanted to sponsor the roundtable, which was awesome and a bit fucking weird and crazy. I don't know how many of you use Gorgeous. This is not a sales pitch by any stretch of the imagination, but a few people have come back to me and be like, what the fuck is Gorgeous? I've used Gorgeous for years. It was the easiest sell in our agency on our retainer tech stack. It was like easy bit of kit, easy money. And a few of my agencies actually use them now. It's kind of weird how many people don't have tech stacks for their agencies. They're the #1 rated help desk for Shopify. And they work with like 6,000 Shopify stores, like pretty legit. But anyway, I'm really excited about them sponsoring this roundtable, which is super awesome. And the other thing that I wanted to say, the other housekeeping, is the boot camp. I have like a group of agencies that are waiting to join this mastermind that I run. Is that like my multiple personality slipping in, or somebody else?
Yeah.
Not on
Tell
mute?
Chandra to keep it down.
You need to do the same thing that
Shanae.
Sounds like Dan Jones' kids are hanging out.
Yeah, Dan Jones is picking up.
Then you circle.
Let me fucking mute that shit. Okay.
I put my daughter in the cage so I could get into it today.
Your daughter's in the cage like Borat's child.
Bedroom. Sorry.
Very nice. So yes, the boot camp. I have a handful of agencies that are sort of waiting to join a mastermind that is already bursting in that capacity. But you know, I just like to help. I'm a giver. What can I say? So I've decided I'm working or collaborating with an agency that I've helped build their sales process and lead gen funnel. And we're going to kick off this boot camp next month, which is basically 3 months of work that I do with agencies condensed into 6 workshops over the space of a month. So it'll be pretty fucking intense. I mean, to be honest, half an hour with me is pretty intense. So you can imagine doing that 6 times over. It's pretty exhausting. Lucas knows how intense that is. Lucas is only 14. He's just aged so much having known me.
I've been since I was 10.
You've been here since you were 10, yeah, exactly. So yeah, that boot camp is kicking off next month, and it's just going to be a crash course in agency foundations. So anyway, that's all the horse shit from me. I had a couple of topics that I had in mind, especially on the back of that call with a project manager, just like employee engagement and employee retention, stuff like that. But what I always like to do for anybody who's new to this call is kind of understand any pain points or challenges. I had a few emails from people, so I'm not going to point you out until you jump in, but a few challenges from people that people are facing. So whether it's lead generation, retention, delivery process, hiring, firing, whatever that looks like, it would be really great to start with someone in the group to bring their challenge to the table, and then we kind of go around and learn from that. So who wants to go first?
So it has to be a lead specific closing type issue. Is that correct?
No. Just, it needs to be a specific agency. Like if you're like, fucking wife isn't talking to you, I don't give a fuck. Like that kind of thing. I don't really care about your personal problems, but.
Sure, yeah.
I have a topic.
Okay.
New to the group. First off, hi, nice to meet you all. This is my first time attending. I'm Adam Goldschmidt. I'm practice director at Pixify. Rachel, thanks for hooking me up with the Zoom link. I don't know why I couldn't figure that out for myself. The challenge I'm facing, I'm in an interesting place right now. We completely retooled our organization about 2 years ago around this solution called Ecommerce. It's a pre-built, preset, quick-to-market version of Adobe Commerce that's integrated with a few specific ERPs. And we've had great success over the last year, and now we're at the point where we're scaling out our dev team. And we're having a really hard time finding resources, and I'm sure everyone's experiencing that here, that the market is tough right now for development talent. We're struggling with balancing finding good resources that have the underlying skill set and experience that we need versus broadening our scope a little bit and looking for resources that maybe aren't right in the profile of what we're looking for, that we can mold and that we can train and get them the more technical experience or the more platform direct experience, as long as they have that technical backbone. And I'm interested to hear, how other companies are handling that. For me, I'd much rather spend more and pay somebody who I have to spend less time onboarding into the specific technology and really focus on bringing them into the product and our solution first. But I'm interested to hear other perspectives.
So I can share what we're doing, by the way. Another newbie here. And our CTO originally came out of Pixify, so before the network acquisition and all that. And I think this is something, Adam and anyone else, as you scale, we're facing issues where I run our sales, marketing, account management teams. It's like we're bringing on projects that are just a little bit off or going to push our core capabilities differentiated. And we don't want to kill process and what each of our project teams are good at, right? Whether it's just Adobe or in your case, Adobe ERP Commerce combined with a couple ERPs, but I'm sure you want to broaden that so that your net is bigger, Adam. And so what we've built is sort of a innovation team that's built out of the best of our developers. They're sort of individual contributors where they bolt on to the project delivery. So, we don't have to build a whole team that has these capabilities, but we get, the more expensive full stack that can bolt on to teams as sort of, extension, float resources, whatever you want to call it. But all they're doing is not having to be tethered by process of best of breed and just being able to try to do cool shit. And also be able to do things that are pushing the boundaries. In our case, it's like AEM, like we're stuck, as like a typical Magento shop when we're doing that. But it's like, if any of the Magento work we actually want to do, it's like we have to push AEM.
Right.
Toss that on innovation team, 2 or 3 folks. They can bolt on top of the rest of it that's normal for that team.
Yeah, and I think like for me, I have that top of the funnel, if you will, like those bolt-ons, those real specialists, the innovation team, if you will. Like I have those resources. You know, like my senior guys that have been with me since the beginning, that we've built this solution that we've gone to market with, are that team that has that skill set. And you know, AEM is on their radar. Obviously, PWA, we're doing some things there too. What I'm actually trying to do is fill in underneath them, you know, and bringing in more resources. And we're finding a struggle to find that like junior mid level resource. We either have people that have a ton of experience that are really, really expensive, that are hard to get out of their current roles, or we have people that have very, very moderate experience on paper, and we're struggling to find the opportunity to bring them in, even though they don't necessarily match up with what we think we're looking for. And that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to find those, you know, the diamonds in the roughs, if you will.
Adam, can you talk more when you're talking about those people that are underneath the innovation team that Jared mentioned? You've got the innovation people that can bolt on top, and you've got, it sounds like, a core crew, but you're looking for people that are going to be in between those two. Is that what you're saying?
Having a mute issue. No, it's really like, you know, at this point we're, you know, we're going top down, right? So we stripped down our team. We used to be 20 people, you know, and we made it that we were 4, and now we're at 8, you know,
Okay.
and now, you know, and we need individual contributors, really, is more so, you know, like we have our strategic roles. We have a few, you know, recs that we have open that are looking for some strategic hires that are going to help drive the fundal dimension of the direction of the product. Those guys would be more product team. You know, I really just need people who I can bring into a project just to do the work, like where we give you the functional spec and you can develop and you can build it. And what we're finding is that finding resources that have direct experience with Magento is a challenge. So what I'm trying to figure out is, okay, maybe they don't have that Magento experience. You know, we can look at you know, PHP and MySQL and all those underlying technologies. You know, that's one way to go at it. But I'm trying to see if there's other paths to go to find, you know, some of these untapped resources.
This is one of the things that, because my agency is Amazon service oriented. So, and with expanding services to Walmart.com as well. So we're very marketplace centric. One of the things that I'm exploring, and I haven't, you know, completed it yet, but there is you know, I'm familiar with other agency owners in the space. And so we talk about a lot of the smaller to medium-sized agencies, not the big like conglomerates that are, or the big people that are, you know, have a ton of venture backing and are, you know, armed to the hilt with resources, but maybe not the skill set or the knowledge. And, you know, there is a need for people that know what they're talking about, but it can be sometimes difficult to find those people. One of the things that I'm experimenting with, and I don't know what this looks like from a, you know, certain company like Magento versus Shopify versus BigCommerce, whatever. I don't know about the resources that are available for that. But one of the things that I'm experimenting with is I have a friend who is a consultant, and he has a whole range of courses that he has created for sellers that are meant for individual sellers. And so he has an agency access where we can create multiple accounts, give access to a new person, put them basically through this training course. It's a monthly subscription as opposed to like $3,000 or something like that. But we run this person through the course. They've got maybe account management experience, if that's the role we're looking for. And then we'll get them up to date on what is happening with Amazon, because they know some, but not enough, and run them through those courses while they also shadow someone. And then we're going to see, you know, how that works. I have someone that we're going to do that with this month. So I mean, on the next call, if you're on, or if you know, want to stay in touch afterwards, I'm happy to talk about that. But does anybody know of any resources like that where you could put someone through? It's like meant to teach an individual business owner, but could actually help this person?
So this is actually something that I think we have semi-solved. There's kind of coming to the first part where you guys are talking about hiring, and then there's the second part about training, and we have to implement both. The hiring part, it was mentioned the underlying tech pieces, PHP, JavaScript, etc. But there's the other part of the sector or knowledge that of whether it's e-commerce or B2B sales or whatever it is in every role. And so if you can find someone who fits those, they can really, there's kind of a third thing that we search for is, are they a person who learns? Meaning, are they a real good person who just really just dives in and learns things? If they have the underlying of those two, they can be up to speed in almost a month. Like full on is what I found. The other thing we do is we actually set a super high expectation of this is yours to get, but we don't promise to keep you around if you don't perform. And we set that way up front. We're really straightforward and truthful. And we tend to bring on 3-4 people for a role, knowing that they won't all work out. And we find it's a lot less, but because we're very truthful, I don't have any problem doing that. So that helps us get people through the door, and we're pretty successful at it. It also gives you 3 times to learn who not to hire if for some reason all 3 don't work out. Then on the other side, we've been building out for years that training. And we don't necessarily put everyone through the training with the expectation of go do all this training because everyone's different. We say, you're expected to know this on day 1. You're expected to know this by month 1, this by 2 months. And we let them kind of self-direct, and they'll skip what they can. And done about 18 people in the last 8 months like this that we've actually found and kept. So it seems to be working.
Ryan, I think that learning component is something that's so key, and something that I tell people on my team when it comes to troubleshooting is I don't necessarily know, because I'm definitely a troubleshooter. I want to find a solution. Sometimes, like when there doesn't even need to be a solution, I'm like trying to, help someone figure something out. But I tell the people on my team that have a problem troubleshooting, I'm like, I don't know much more than you. I'm just resourceful, and I go and look at things, and I look at forums, or I look at, like, if I have a problem with a peripheral that I'm using with my computer and it's not syncing up right, I'm just going to go search forums. I'm going to look at help articles. I'm going to do all this stuff. How do you assess and determine if someone is a good learner? Because a lot of people say, I'm a fast learner, and they're not. So how do you call bullshit on someone, or just know that they really are a good learner?
Can I just jump in there? Do you set objectives or KPI? Like, do you define all of that at the start when you're employing someone? Because presumably you have somebody in like a 3 to 6 month trial, probation, whatever you call it. Do you set those objectives at the start?
Sort of. We set about a certain level of them, and I set it per person. So I do really per job, per person, and I really try to flex to that person's strengths. The real thing is I try to set an expectation of performance level, and an expectation of independence, and an expectation of how they will be able to operate within the team. So it's more of how they're going to be as a person within the team. And then I really try to mentor them, try to make them successful as much as possible. And part of the reason there is anyone who's ever not worked out, they have profusely thanked for that training, that coaching, and they've even gone and recommended us to other people who've then come and joined, just simply because even if it was only 4 weeks of training or mentorship, it was immense. So I don't think that it's a one size fits all. There has to be someone slightly tailoring it, because each person has different weaknesses. There's no perfect unicorn fit. Mm-hmm. And as for the other one, we use a 2-hour rule. It's kind of what I try to teach people for how to solve those problems. Take up to a half hour trying to solve the problem. If you're not able to figure it out in a half hour, spend up to an hour researching the problem, understanding the problem. Focus on the problem, not on the solution for that hour. Come back for a half hour, try to solve it while also possibly looking into understanding. If you get to the end of 2 hours and you don't have a solution, go ask someone for 5 minutes to look at what you've done. By then you should have some notes, some understanding, and hopefully that person with their 5 minutes can give you a better direction. Because if you get to 2 hours on the same problem, I don't know, you're probably spinning.
Mm-hmm.
I like the 2-hour rule.
Yeah, to be honest, the topic that one of the things that I really wanted to discuss on the back of multiple upset team members on phone calls with me is kind of nurturing employees. And I think, we're all been working from home and not really seeing each other, although fuck the police, because I've got a group of agencies coming here to Gran Canaria next month and I don't care. Anybody who thinks that I'm irresponsible can come here and fight me. And as soon as they get here, they'll be like, this is paradise, no need to fight. However, I definitely can see that massive disconnect with agency owners getting very frustrated, or leadership teams and agencies getting super frustrated with underperforming employees that perform pretty well and are underperforming now. And then employees getting really frustrated and upset. I see a lot of people who are jumping ship and moving to other companies and then jumping from the frying pan to the fire, because it's the same everywhere else. Everywhere is fucking hectic right now, especially in our industry. So I just really wanted to understand, as a collective, like what sort of measures, what sort of systems are you putting in place to kind of keep that morale going in your team until everybody is inevitably back in the office, if that's what you want. I know there's a couple of people here in the group. Galen is one of them, that has run a remote team for a long time. So some people have always been remote. Some people are going to stay remote. But that disconnect and people not seeing each other is definitely an issue. So is that something you're seeing in your teams? Maybe Nihar, something from you. Your team has doubled in size in the last year. Roswell has grown pretty significantly. So what are you guys doing?
You mean talking about to like keep everyone focused and keep everybody kind of in line with
company culture, morale, all that stuff?
That's an interesting question. So basically, what we do company-wide virtual happy hours like every other month, where we just, on a Friday or a Thursday at 5 o'clock, tell everybody, hey, whatever you're doing, get drinks for everybody, PayPal if there's not like a delivery service close by, and just have everybody, on a big Brady Bunch screen, and everyone just kind of talks and chops it up. And we've had a number of new hires lately, and we've expanded our divisions. So there are people that are at Roswell that have never actually seen what the other people look like. So there's that. And then we also have, we have a water cooler channel on our Slack channel, where people just come in and take a break and just shoot the shit and, talk about different things that, are of interest. We encourage everybody to, connect with other team members, that have common interests. We also have in terms of the design and development divisions at Roswell, we have an account manager, project manager, and we have developers and QA that are all part of like a pod or a team. And we have 4 of them at Roswell. So that basically helps in that regard, where we have where you have a group of staff members that could get close. But apart from that, as we're continuing to grow our customer retention division, our sales division, for example, Felicia's on the call, and I doubt she's had the opportunity to meet all 35 people at Roswell, and so it's a genuine issue of company culture and just kind of morale that I am actually interested in understanding what's worked for other people too. But that's kind of what we've done.
Yeah, I think you're right. We sort of have been remote, but we actually sort of.
Sorry, can I just interject, Galen? The beard. I mean, we haven't seen you for a few months, but you've been working hard, clearly, growing your beard out.
A bit of an experiment. I don't know how long it'll last.
Yeah, fantastic. Excellent work.
Yeah, so we actually weren't remote. We had a team in New Zealand, which might be considered remote if you're in the US, but that's where I started the company. And we have a team in New York, and we've definitely hired some of our remote first people. And the learning there has been that when people went remote, we already knew each other and we had a culture, and that was fine and it worked really well. When we hired remote first, it did not go very well. And we saw burnout. One guy, he did not last very long because of his own challenges with remote. He realized he needed to be in person, and he went to a different agency where he could work in person in the US. But I think what my team has been doing, the New York team, particularly because they have been remote from each other the whole time. The New Zealand team are mostly back together. They have their happy hour every Friday, not every couple of months. And I don't actually join. I joined once or twice, but I realized that the conversation changes very rapidly when I join, even though we all get on very well. I think it's better just to leave them to it, to just not, it turns to work talk really fast when I come on. So I don't join that. But also we, in the New York team, we have a quick stand-up every morning. It is quite sort of oriented around outcomes and things like that, but it is also a chance to just like pull each other in, and we see each other every day briefly. I think that probably one of the biggest things we've done talking about pods is that we actually are moving away from having specific pods, but having cross-functional teams and working, making sure all the devs are actually working with each other. And so it's a pod per project, but there's complete crossover. And so that has been remarkable, the shift of how fast they learn from each other, because no longer are just two devs always working with the same pairings or whatever. They're always, almost always, even on different projects at the same time, working with a different dev on in a different pod or whatever, and a different project manager and a different account manager or designer or whatever. And so the learnings have been exponential as a result of that, because previous to that, we had half the team didn't know what the other half of the team did and had never interacted with them. And now they work together. We have all the devs, they have a weekly sort of, I guess, dev stand up where it's completely cross project. It's not specific, where they can bring their own challenges and learnings to each other, and then they all learn faster from each other. So if anything, I think probably the biggest thing we've done in the last 6 months is at one point we were like, oh, we have too many meetings, and we realized, okay, too many meetings for the sake of meetings is burnout, but more workshops and more kind of almost one-on-ones has exponentially changed our productivity. So even though half an hour, so in the morning we tend to have like 2 half-hour check-ins. It could be as a group and then a one-on-one with a different person each day. You cross-pollinate so much faster and you learn so much quicker than constantly slacking each other and communicating. And so I think collectively we are way stronger as a result, because now everybody interacts with each other at different points throughout the week.
That's a good point, because I think being in an office or being used to being in an office, that stuff would happen organically. You'd already be looking over each other's shoulder and like, oh, you hear some buzz of this project, that sounds cool. And that stuff naturally happens. And then you pull that office environment out and you're doing it all virtually.
Yeah.
And it's death by Zoom and death by a million calendar invites. And you're like, I couldn't give a fuck about jumping on a call about something that doesn't help me with my immediate problem.
Yeah, we've added at the end of our, we do have a weekly all-team stand-up. We've done that for a really long time, where we do run through all the projects and everybody gets insight into what everybody else is working on, and they can ask questions. It's headlines only. It goes pretty quick. There's usually a chance for a team to share a project they've just launched or something cool that they've worked on for everybody to see, to get inspired. But at the end, if there's time, and usually there's sort of 15 minutes, we go into breakout rooms and divide up into sort of 3 or 4 people per room. And so every week you get a chance to just shoot the breeze with 2 or 3 others on the team that you often wouldn't have that opportunity with, and everybody really values that as well. And it's because it's at the end, anyone who needs to jump off can just jump off, and that's worked really well as well.
Galen, are you mandating those those calls throughout the week, or are you just encouraging people to do those and you're seeing them do those more? Because I totally think, like you said, slacking about something can be time consuming, and it's better to just jump on a call. I do that with people on my team, but how are you getting people within the team to do that?
Yeah, definitely not mandating, but actively encouraging. So I now have a one-on-one with everybody on my New York team every week. So there's 5 of them. And so I do have after our stand up in the morning, I switch over to whoever it is. So each day it's a different person. And then the sort of other person on the team who I work with closely, I don't have a one-on-one with, but it's just a chance, and they're always productive. It's a chance for them to share what they're working on, what they're doing. And so as a result of them seeing the success of that, I've encouraged them to do the same. So like the project manager, I said, you should really have a one-on-one with each of your developers, and maybe not weekly, but every 2 weeks, rotate, alternate. And so ideally, if everybody's kind of having a one-on-one at least a couple times a week with somebody else, they start to support each other so much faster than, because stuff just comes up in those conversations that you might have in an office. But even in an office, it's less productive in some ways. And I think I'm encouraging them to schedule. And I think that's the other thing, even on client projects and the success of those as well, we're realizing we've gotten pretty good at a weekly cadence of workshops or meetings with the client to keep things moving, but we're not doing that internally. And so we're trying to parallel that and saying, if you have a cadence of a weekly sync up with the client, then we need to have a cadence of a weekly internal session together with all the stakeholders, as knowledge transfer. Otherwise, like suddenly we realize we haven't checked in as a group ourselves with the original account manager who sold the project, with the developer, the design lead as it moves through. We need to be doing those workshops internally to transfer the knowledge, and that needs to be on the calendar every week as a cadence. Otherwise, you kind of just forget. And then 3 weeks turns into 6 weeks and you haven't really rebased. So actually, in some ways, it means more meetings, but they're not. We're trying to get away from this idea that they're meetings and that's a dirty word. They're workshop sessions that are productive, and it seems to be working.
Do you have a format for those, or you just tell people to show up and share?
Yeah, no, we're definitely, like, we've been using Navigator and now we're playing with Fellow. So trying to find tools where you have the prompts for the talking points. We haven't found the right tool yet. But yes, definitely you want talking points, and especially with client meetings, that you talk through the headlines and it take away the emotion of like the conversational aspect of it, and just say like, we're going to walk through the bullet points, and budget's going to be one of them probably, or timeline or whatever, the stuff that you try not to bring up. If it's a talking point, it's really easy to address it. If it's not, it's really hard. And I think it's the same. And so for internal one-on-ones, we use Lattice for our culture management. So the same thing, we've got talking points that flow through week after week, and that you can come back and address. And I often pull up the previous notes and say, oh, last week we touched on this thing that you were really stressed about. How are you feeling about that today? And yeah, so no, I mean, we're trying to come up with a better format for structured. I think we're definitely trying to go in with the sort of idea in our heads that there's got to be an outcome from these meetings. We're not just coming in to talk. The worst ones, the least structured, are operational ones with the management team. You tend to vent with each other and just, go through stuff, and it's hard to sort of lock it down because you don't have a kind of team to go and execute all this stuff at operational levels. It's a lot harder. The ball often, it kind of stops with us. I think that's where, whereas with the layers of project managers and lead developers and stuff, I'm finding more and more disseminate it to somebody and then say to them, go and talk to somebody else to make sure you action this, and that you escalate this up to your PM or out to your dev team, so that's, we make a change faster. And so it's always trying to like get somebody else to make sure they buy into an idea from a meeting, and that they can sort of pair up with somebody else. I think that's the big outcome. Always pair up with somebody to take action. If you try and do it on your own, it's just really hard to roll out change across a whole organization.
Even just from an accountability point of view, I think it's holding accountable. One thing I would say as well that I see a lot with agencies is you're having a lot of these meetings, and there's a lot of great action points on the back of it. And in many cases, real life happens and agency life happens, and none of this shit gets done. And then weeks go by and months go by, and then agency owners come to me and be like, fuck's sake, I've said this now 6 times and it still hasn't been done. Like, this is such a ball ache. I always say to them, where do you document this? Do you have like a central board in like whatever tool? Let's say you're using Asana. Do you have a central team board in Asana that every time you have these team meetings, you make a list of the action points on the back of it, so you can hold people accountable? And they're like, no, I just tell them to do it on Slack. Okay, amongst all the other 50,000 notifications that come through on Slack and the various tools that people are using. So I think as business owners or team leads, you really need to be mindful of all of the noise and the chaos that happens. And if you want shit done, it needs to be written down somewhere central, so you can, I don't mean this in a fucking asshole way, but you can kind of name and shame people when stuff hasn't been done, and appoint other people to hold others accountable. That's definitely something that I see agency owners or team leads don't do particularly well, is they have, as entrepreneurs, we're visionaries, we're creative, and this fucking idea, and this can happen. And they're like, okay, I've got a team of people to do it, right? Go and do it. And then you come back, and you're like, well, I forgot what the idea is. I know it was groundbreaking, but I can't remember exactly what I said, but nobody's done it, and now I've forgotten. And that was my $1 billion idea right there. But really, it's your job to hold that team accountable.
I think also what could help in terms of accountability, and I'm thinking about this because I've dealt with this recently, and I've let go of some people, and I've actually condensed our team down from what was like 16 to now closer to 11 to 10 people. And I'm trying to get more use out of each person. I heard someone say, having people doing multiple tasks or kind of crossing over. And so we've got I have someone that does advertising for us on the Amazon platform, but she also does design stuff. So she's, using multiple skill sets, trying to include people in that way. But I guess one of the ways, because I know accountability is an issue for me, even the people that are accountable, I need them to remember stuff or remember to do things because they've got things on their plate. So I guess I'm thinking maybe if you say, hey, at the next team meeting, you're going to present 5-10 minutes on this, then they have to be prepared they have to be able to show and prove that they've done something. And if they don't, then they look stupid themselves. They're gonna, and I'm again not for the sake of shaming people, but they know, oh wow, I did not prepare for this. I was not ready. Then when you go into a coaching conversation to say what happened today, you know, why were you not ready with that? They're already gonna come back and say, I didn't do this thing well. I guess there just has to be some kind of follow through measure put in place to get them to actually do that. Because if they don't, like Rachel said, you're just, you know, wandering around in your mind.
We're trying to get away from using, I hate documents. I hate writing them. I hate parsing them and reading them and then figuring out how to extract action points out of them. So what we're trying to do is start documenting things as tasks instead. And then obviously if there's nuance, you can just put that nuance into the description of the task, and then you can assign it to somebody and get it done. And so what I really try and encourage the team, and I do myself, is at the end of a meeting, you shouldn't have to go and rewrite your notes or edit them. They should be done. They're ready to go, and the action points are done. And ideally, they're already in the tools that you're going to use. And in terms of meetings like that, holding accountability, I'm a big believer that if you have to go and ask somebody what the status is of something or who has capacity, then there's something wrong, because it's all in the tools we use somewhere. And so what I'm sort of constantly pushing is like, well, if somebody's asking you, does this person have capacity? Then I would go, well, what dashboard can I spin up and click up so that they can just see it, and then they don't have to ask me next time? Or like, what task list view can we show them so they don't have to ask me? And so if anything, our meetings are not recaps. We really try and avoid any like talking through the status of anything, because it's all there. We're actually trying to discuss a problem that is easier to discuss in words, that is going to have an outcome, not just recapping and sharing.
Because I've had those calls with like with managers or account management. I've said these calls are not recap calls, because otherwise we can all look at metrics and we should all know, let's come together to the table with some problems and make sure that we solve those. And I found that when people, even someone on my team who's an advertiser and is trained to really be more of an account manager, I've set a weekly half-hour call with her, and she just brings anything that she has an issue with or she needs help with. And I can say, you're already on the right track. You don't need my help there. Or I can say, yeah, you've done a great job. Or, you know what, I think you made an error here. And I would say it's because of XYZ.
So a number of interesting things have been said, and we implement most of them in different ways. So we break off team meetings in the mornings so that actually makes our one-on-ones in the afternoons be more effective. That way we can disseminate information at once, and we do the small team meetings in the morning. We always try to make sure that we cover 4 things at these: wins, so that people actually tell the truth on the second part; blockers, because that's really the most important and effective thing we can actually deal with as a team or break off meetings for; risks, because they're different than blockers, and knowing risks helps us get ahead of them. And we specifically talk about the time and make sure that people say where they are seeing timelines, because those are the ones that sometimes don't get into Jira. We also always have a mentor for every single person, and they do a once a week one-on-one no matter what. And for that, we have a dashboard in Jira where we have all this, and we spend the first 1 or 2 minutes just scrolling down it, and it has everything in the first 2 minutes. Sometimes it actually tells us what we can do to mentor them or talk with them to really help them improve. And I found a lot of, just for kind of this part of the topics, that's really been successful here and growing people, going from junior to senior in a very short period of time. The other thing at the beginning you guys were mentioning was the larger meetings. We do Friday end of day. We do the individual, just, have a drink, whatever, become a small team, actually have real chats. And we float leadership in, sometimes for 15 minutes, different people in them to kind of bring the team together, as well as a monthly context meeting that is really focused on helping people see how they're part of something larger, how they're building something bigger than just this one website. How are we as a company doing something cool, really touching on those internal motivators. So right, wrong, or in between, maybe some of those help.
I think that's a really good point. I had that conversation with one of the agencies I work with, Irish Titan, and they do, what does he call it? A strategy share. I'll put my teeth back in and try again. A strategy share. I think I said it wrong 4 times, but fucking am I Irish. He calls it a strategy share, and basically once, I think every 6 months he gets the team together. There's food, there's drinks, most of it's done virtually, especially what's happened with the pandemic, but he does have people in the office as well. He actually rented out a space because of social distancing, so people could come in and do it there, and the rest just then zoomed in. Food, drinks, and did basically, what is the big picture? Where are we going as an agency? What is our game plan? How does everybody, each department fit into that? And that was definitely a huge win for his team. There were some people that were just there to get pissed, to get drunk. And there's other people that were just there so they didn't have to do work. But there was a good portion of people who were there afterwards who said, you know, I really feel like I'm part of something. I can see where my career and where this company is going. And I think that increasingly so, people want to feel like they're part of something or part of something that's moving forward. I think as leaders, that's something you have to be super mindful of how you're communicating that. Otherwise, it's just a fucking, you know, you're just crunching numbers or like a monkey pushing buttons behind a screen all the time. I don't think anybody really wants to feel like that.
Does anyone here follow the EOS or traction methodology in their shops? Was it familiar with it?
A book. I haven't read it yet, but I've heard great things.
So you should read the book. There's a few books on it. I happen to like the one Get a Grip. It's more of like an allegory story version of it to help you understand it. But we implemented traction about 1.5 years ago throughout our entire enterprise, and that has paid tremendous dividends through the pandemic. There's set cadence for different types of meetings that you're having. So, you know, for me as the practice director, I have a head of delivery. We have a same page meeting every 2 weeks. You know, and over the course of 2 weeks, we add things to an agenda. If there's something that needs to be talked about sooner, we get on a call and talk about it. But otherwise, we kind of tackle those issues, you know, every other week. Then I have quarterly conversations with everyone on my team where we basically look at our core values and how that person is lining up with the core values of the company. If they're hitting their rocks, which are their main goals and their projects and, you know, that they have to be focused on. So we check on status there and, you know, we give them an opportunity to evaluate what's going on with the business. So that's, you know, one of the other cadences that we have. And then every month we do what we call an L10. It's a, you know, high level overview of everything going on with the business. I do one of those with my executive team where I'm presenting and giving them, you know, all the background and, you know, problem solving where they can help me. And then I do another one where I give an L10 for my team where I fill them in on the details of the pipeline, you know, the sales pipeline, things that they're not connected to on a day-to-day basis, you know, strategic direction and things like that. So I definitely recommend if anyone has a chance to read the EOS books and on traction to learn a little bit more about that, not necessarily to stick to it rigidly, but a lot of the concepts that are part of the operating system really do help you have that level of transparency both ways with your employees, as well as keep you up to speed on the important things that are going on at the right moments in time, I feel.
I'll second the methodology. I didn't realize until I just read it, but we use quite a few of the different pieces accidentally.
Yeah.
Would you mind sharing that? I'd appreciate it if you. I'd love to see if there's a link you can put in the chat, Adam.
Yeah.
I do something. I started doing this, and it's a really small. I mean, it's kind of like when we do a monthly team meeting, and I don't know how much it lines up with softwares like Lattice or Fellow. I'm going to look into those, but it's a free service that a friend of mine developed, and I'll put the link in the chat. But essentially, it's this software that has a bunch of preloaded questions that you can also like implement hold music or whatever you want as people are coming into the meeting. He's a professor and he designed it to initially be able to kind of take care of some of the silence that was in the room when people were coming into the class. But it's actually a great icebreaker too, because it's got questions that like you could come up with your own questions. You could even do work related stuff, project related stuff, and say, does what you're doing line up with company vision? And you get to pick the people that you want, create groups that you want, each person. So I could put my whole team on one for our monthly team meeting. And then we could go through icebreaker questions, or we could go through random facts or anything else like that. And it randomly picks people and then they have to say something. And like at our team meeting most recently, I had it on Tuesday, had it yesterday. One of the questions was, what's your most favorite memory? And someone on my team said, well, I actually was in I had a traumatic brain injury when I was 18. I was in a car accident. So I don't remember stuff when I was like from a kid or before that. And I know her very well. I've known her for a year and I never heard that. And that was something that brought her out. And so which I thought was cool. And then one of the things I implemented recently on Slack was using the app Polly, Polly, like Polly want a cracker. It's got a little bird as an image. I don't know what this is. This is like a dying bird or something like that I was pretending to show. But the bird, Polly, you can create surveys, quizzes, all kinds of stuff. And so what I did is I put together a survey that automatically goes to everyone 30 minutes after the meeting's over. And I asked you like 5 questions. You can customize it, but it's like, how productive was this meeting on a scale of 1 to 10? And I can make it anonymous. You can make it individual. I told people it was anonymous because it is, and encourage them to leave honest feedback. We do not get better, if we don't get feedback. And I said, I know even as your boss asks you for feedback, it sounds like a trap. Like, okay, he's gonna set me up to fire me because he doesn't like the feedback that I give him. But I had multiple people comment and say like, hey, I love this alpha ask class thing, was a good icebreaker. And I've also gotten good feedback on the meeting and have seen people that like Rachel spoke to about people wanting to be a part of something like, yeah, I'm really excited about what's going on. I feel like we're really growing as a team. And so both of those things were things that will help, and they were both free, just as in terms of kind of bringing some team connectivity and morale together.
Nice. Yeah, there's lots of great tools. I put one in the chat there, Icebreaker, but it's called something else now. It's rebranded recently. And one of the agencies that I work with, I'm actually acting as director of operations in that agency, and we use that on a weekly basis for our team calls, and they have questions set up there and so on and so forth. And it's pretty good. Bit awkward sometimes getting into those conversations and asking stuff about what their favorite color is, and what's one memory that they absolutely, most horrific memory, and you're like, Jesus Christ, it's a bit deep for a Monday morning. But it definitely gets the conversation flowing, that's for sure.
Have you ever killed somebody?
Did anybody see the article that came out today from Tobias at Shopify, the founder of Shopify, about differentiating between you're running a business, it is not a family, it's a team. We're a high functioning sports team, but we're not a family. And I think that there's that kind of conversation about businesses saying, we're a family and we work together as a family, and a lot of people being like, yeah, we're not a fucking family. I
think it's BS too, because what if you treat your family like shit? What if you have like stolen from your family? What if you lied to them a bunch? I don't want you to treat me like your family.
Michael, this is not confessional, okay? You go and speak to your about that shit.
Not a family problem.
We don't want our crazy uncle.
I might be the crazy uncle, unfortunately.
So this is something.
They're gonna have HR issues.
There's also a middle ground here. So you got the family on one side, the high functioning sports team analogy on the other. They're both complete crap in my book. The real spot is in the middle. Why are people there? What you're trying to do here is you're trying to brand and sell your company. What people care about is, can they make connections and can they grow as an individual? Connections is the family side, and you think it's the most important thing. High functioning sports team is you are going to be around other people who you can grow with. The truth is you sell the two individually. You're going to make connections here. They're awesome people, and you make sure that as an owner, you bring awesome people. The second thing is you make sure that you support people's growth and you do whatever it takes to do that, and they will stick around pretty much forever. That's my take. Sorry, I had pretty strong feelings on that one.
Clearly, Ryan, don't hold back. Don't hold back, Ryan. Tell us how you really feel. Jesus, you don't need therapy this week. You got it all out of your system there in about 2 minutes.
Hey, no, Ryan, but it's problem with my wife. Can you help me? Can you call it like it is? I'll patch you in.
Beanbag in the corner.
I got a bunch of flyers. A bunch of flyers.
I might be a little offended.
Yeah. No, that's a really interesting point. I think sometimes there is it's blurred lines, especially because of the situation we're in, where people are like working from home and not seeing each other, and you have to work harder to build that rapport, and everybody's being told you have to build relationships outside of the work thing. And I see that blurred lines a lot of the time. And some employees, because the work that I do, I have a private group of agencies, which some of the agencies in this group are part of that. And as part of that group, I also coach their project managers and their sales team and their senior leadership team. So I hear all of the shit from the team members about what they're feeling or what they're going through in the company, and some of the stress that they're going and the burnout and all that stuff. So I think it's really important to have that clear disconnect, that it is business and you want to treat people fairly. thing I wanted to say, Ryan, which I think was a really point. You want to bring good people in. I think when you're starting off your business, you get people in that you can afford. And at some stage, you have to put your money where your mouth is and bring in solid people, heavy hitters that are going to cost you a small fortune and that you're taking a bit of a risk on because they're earning a lot of money. But if you hire properly and do due diligence, the people you bring in, you will build your business off their back. And sometimes you have to fork out that expense, not for every role. Sales role for sure. Bring in a fucking big dog. Don't bring somebody in who doesn't have a clue what they're doing. Bring in a big dog who knows their shit. If you can find somebody in the industry, a lead developer, leads in departments. You want to fork out. One of the agencies I work with in New York, Avex, they announced it on LinkedIn last week, or when did you start? On Monday, actually, this week. And we brought in their head of retention from Cora, and she moved over, came to Avex. And obviously she came from Cora. She's not cheap because they pay big money. But my God, she is a couple of days into the job and she is an absolute shark. She is going to be killer in that business. So when you have the opportunity, I met, some of you might know her, a girl called Colleen Oates. She was MD of One Rockwell and then moved over then to Shopify to head up their partnerships. And I had a chance to sit down with her a few years ago when I was running a plus agency and asked her for advice around hiring. And she said she built that team in One Rockwell out pretty significantly, and they're considered one of the top agencies. And she said to me, when you find good people, you find the money. It doesn't matter what you have to do, you find the money and you hire them because they will be the difference in building your team.
Also, if I may also enter into the conversation. Hi,
Mm-hmm.
I'm Laden from Meliora. There is a pretty good book. It's called No Rules Rules from the CEO of Netflix. And he's talking about a lot of those things, how they hire Netflix, how they compete with Facebook and Google, and how they hire like top talents and how they keep them. And he's talking about this kind of analogy between a sports team, the family, and it's pretty good book, and I totally recommend it. I recently finished it.
There's one thing to kind of be that I worry about the Netflix approach. It's a bit the complaint that I hear from people who've worked there is you never know when you're going to get canned. Yeah, they give you a nice bonus, but their culture has some issues. So just be aware, it's got some issues.
Okay, so we take a job at Netflix. Was that learning there, Ryan?
I just got hired, but then they fired me as soon as I got on, so I can't really.
I don't blame them, to be honest. If you're anything in your interview like you are on these calls, I think you should send Loom recordings beforehand so people know what they're getting themselves into.
I think my family thinks I'm incompetent because they ask my wife for all of the questions and answers, and I'm like, you know that you guys gave birth to me. I'm a human too. And they're like, yeah, we don't care.
I have a question because this has come up quite a few times, and I just wondered who's going through this right now. Have anybody in the last, let's say 6 months, how many of you have put your employees on performance improvement plans?
I have.
Yeah.
We have a couple of times, and the end result was that we had to let those people go.
Yep.
Interesting.
Even though we put them on a
it usually is for me
performance
also.
improvement.
I find that the performance improvement plan is really just a measure to cover yourself when HR needs to get involved and make sure that it's clear. I've never ever seen someone go on a PIP and actually come out of it effectively. I've seen situations where it gets better after like 2 or 3 months in that initial time window, and then like a month after that, it just goes back to the way things were. That's kind of my view on it.
I had the same thing happen with an account manager of sorts, sort of a junior account manager. And she had some personal stuff going on. And I just eventually I gave her too much slack. And I said, you need to myself and my business partners at the time, who I no longer have, who pieced out, who also kind of performance was poor. And I really put her to task on it and said, we need to, you need to fix this and figure it out because it's not working. But I told this woman that you have a 30-day plan, you need to turn this stuff around. And it resulted in us having to let her go. But at least it was clear that she knew what was up. And so one of the things I've been working on implementing, it has been difficult for me because of the just the amount of, I have a couple changes in my team. I'm looking to bring on some additional people to help with stuff and move some other people around, but have implemented performance reviews. And typically what I'll do is have them fill out a performance review. Then I will go and fill out a performance review. I will review their performance review beforehand. And I've done this before and it works really well because I can now see, okay, they are not aware that they're failing in this area, or they're actually too hard on themselves. They're doing way better than that. And then we can align on that at the end, but then they're very clear on what they need to work on.
So I think that PIPs are a already failed point, so we don't do those. What we do is go in if someone's not doing well, and it's just essentially we consider it a one-on-one every week. We try to address any little things. It's a rule. You have to address things at the latest at that one-on-one, any possible problem. And first, I coach people to first come there with what they did to cause the situation, because these are always co-created situations. So if I'm going to essentially try to coach someone on something they're doing wrong, I have to say how I created that situation in a certain way. I didn't set an expectation. I didn't give an accurate timeline, whatever it is. And then I go as deep as have to set the expectation as high as possible on that. And while I don't create an official PIP, if someone doesn't do it, you have to let them go, because else it starts hurting the rest of the team. And I've been successful a few times, actually, really successful. They've turned around and become team leads and stuff even. And I think the biggest thing that I've seen different is putting yourself out there, like willing to really put out yourself as part of that conversation.
That's what I was just going to say on the back of what Adam and a couple of other people said. I think if you're putting employees on performance improvement plans to cover your arse, then you've 100% left it too late, for sure.
The feedback they needed. Ryan, you said they have to come in and say, here's what I did in this situation.
If it's me giving the performance, I have to. I literally have to start the conversation with, how did I help create this? These things don't just happen. I clearly didn't set the bar high enough, or expectations wasn't clear on them. I didn't provide certain communication channels, and that actually helps me improve the business a ton. Because if I have to find out where I screwed up, that means at the very minimum, even if they leave, that same problem probably won't happen again.
I've taken that same level of accountability, and I can tell that my team appreciates it just based on how loyal they've been and how bought into what they're doing. But half the time when something goes wrong, I've said, look, I put you in this position and I didn't properly set you up. Here's what I should have done. Here's what we're going to do moving forward. And I say, you need to do X, Y, Z, but it's not like and I just believe, I read a book early on in my working days called Fierce Conversations. And it was all about having, the conversations that you need to have, giving tough feedback, but also being encouraging, not doing the compliment, negative feedback compliment sandwich, because it just sets people up to, every time you give feedback, they're going to expect, a compliment, they're expecting bad, they're expecting bad news to also come there. But I just say, I'm very open about the feedback, and I say, I need to be able to, here's what I did, but here's what I need you to do. And then it's feedback in the moment. It's very palatable because it's there. I've also taken responsibility, and then I'm seeing improvement in that area. So I can 100% attest to that being very positive, and just making sure I have conversations. So when I say, hey, let's hop on the phone. And I also just tell people, hey, if I ever say, let's hop on the phone, you're not getting fired. Because that would be crazy. It would be like, if you, like whatever the Netflix situation is. So I say, I just want to have a conversation. It's easier to do. I address the fears right out front that might be there, and just say, look, this is not about you getting fired. I just want to talk about performance, and we're going to help you get to a better place, whatever it might be.
I agree with that.
Sorry, go ahead, Galen. I wanted to do a screen share with the template that I use, but you go first while I load this up.
I was just going to say I completely agree with what Ryan and Michael are saying, that I'm also the same, to quickly take accountability to sort of more systemic, like personal and or systemic shortcomings of us as a team. And I think it's kind of like, again, in the sort of spirit of trying to work smarter, not harder, like I sort of start thinking about it like how the purpose of FAQs on a website is that when you get repeated customer service questions, go and write the question as an FAQ, write the answer, and then point them there. It's the same thing when I see systemic problems or like a problem with a project manager. I will often immediately see the wider. There's lots of issues that have led to that person's shortcomings, and so we address those and say, right, okay, we are clearly not documenting things, and you disseminate that to the other project managers, so they all learn quickly. The reality is, though, often that person's inability to react to those shortcomings, it does mean the writing is on the wall, but you have grown as a company as a result of that. If you disseminate that out right from and make changes immediately and say, okay, we've fallen short, we're going to do this from now on, but it can be too late for that person.
And one caveat there, that when disseminating that information, I try to be very careful to give context, not try to put in processes that act like red tape. Else you can start to implode under all this red tape.
Great. That's a really good point, because I'm also trying not to do that of like micromanaging, saying, right, we're going to do it like this, because I become like the worst client where I'm like telling them what the solution is instead of, so now it's more like, hey guys, how can we do better with documenting a process or outlining whatever? And so let them come up with the ultimate solution, but just really defining that, disseminating the problem maybe to the wider team so that they can come up with a solution together.
Exactly. Again, an agency I work with in Germany got the same problem right now, where for some reason the projects are it's just a big bag of shite at the moment. There's just like so much stuff going on, and it's pretty obvious to me from the outside looking in what the problem is, and it doesn't matter how many times that I try and crack the agency owner's skull against the problem, it's just not happening. And I said to him, okay, I'm going to go to your team, because your team know what the problem is and they will be able to figure out the solution. Let them do it. And we spent the last 2 weeks doing little workshops. They figure out the solution and he doesn't have to worry about it. Galen, one of the points you mentioned earlier, which I think is a super good point, they're the ones that are going to be living that solution. So they need to be part of creating it. I think if you're the one that says like, this is the solution, this is what it needs to look like, they're not bought in. They're not bought in. Whereas if you tell them that here's a problem, give me your recommendation of what you think, and work together collectively to create that, and say, okay, you're responsible for this, you're responsible for that, then it's much less pressure for you. And I think that so many agencies have invisible capes where they think they have to like dive in like a superhero and fix everything. That's why you hired a team of people, so you don't have to keep doing that, and you have to trust your people.
It's not just pressure, it's actually impossible. I don't think organization change happens if you try and tell everybody what to do. It happens, and I've also noticed it doesn't happen if one person like comes up with their own new process and then says, this is how we're going to do it. So what we try to do is now say you have to pick a partner and pair up on this. That, find someone else with a similar problem, which is almost always going to be somebody. You pair up on like the initial solution, you then roll that up to, if there's a lead project, like we are now developing a project management office, a PMO function. So roll that up to them, present it to them, they can give feedback, and then they adopt it and roll it out. Or you champion it with your partner, and then you put it out to your peers and say, this is what we're proposing, any feedback, and then you roll it out. Anybody trying to implement change by presenting a new solution to the whole team, it just never gets adopted. Nobody's bought in.
One of the things that I was going to show you, let me see, just share my screen, and I can share this with anybody who wants it, because this is a look, for those who don't know that are new to this, I've got a big fucking issue with tabs. So it is what it is, whatever. We're talking about doing performance improvement plans, and I think that in most cases, performance improvement plans are used as a punishment and in a way to manage people out, and I totally understand that, and I think that that can work. What I recommend agencies do, or businesses in general, but I only work with e-commerce agencies, so what I recommend my clients do is have something like this in place on a quarterly basis, where it's actually scheduled on a quarterly basis. All businesses should be doing quarterly reviews with you should have monthly check-ins, but actual quarterly reviews against metrics and KPIs, or OKRs, depending on what terminology you use. I've fleshed this out in lots of different ways to different agencies. But the important thing about this is I want, as much as my feedback and what I think an employee's performance is like, it's equally important for me to understand what they feel their issues are and how their performance is. And in some cases, this document will tell you, or the feedback on this document will actually tell you if you need to fire somebody or not. Because there are some people that they could be underperforming so significantly and they're completely oblivious, and it's either a pride thing or totally unaware. And in many cases, some of your concerns about an employee or some of your frustrations, you will see in this document, so you're both on the same page. And when your concerns are mirrored in their self-evaluation, you know then that it's something you can do to fix. Potentially, you can either coach them up or you have to coach them out. So this is something that I would recommend for all agencies, to have something like this in place and be proactive and get feedback from your team members to kind of figure out where their heads are at, where they think they're struggling, to give you feedback on what you're doing or where you could be performing better or helping them grow better. I don't know how many people use that. Again, it's something that I got online. It's not particularly cute. It gets the job done, but it's very, very, very effective.
So
I don't know.
question. One of the things that I've been hesitant about that, or found not to drag that approach down, has been how impersonal it can be versus pulling it into our one-on-one ones where, and also the other one, I guess, is the fact that quarterly seems 25 weeks, too long, or I guess 15. But the point being is, shouldn't it be done weekly? That's a lot of months there to be of lost productivity if it's only quarterly. I feel like this type of thought process should be a weekly thing so that you can move faster. I mean, even what IBM was the ones who invented the annual review, they don't even do it anymore. They've abolished it and moved more to, I think, a weekly format.
But you wouldn't get an employee to fill out a self-evaluation form on a weekly basis.
Yeah, that's kind of I think what I was getting at is the first point there is rather a form is a bit impersonal, and it doesn't. I don't know. I guess people filling out forms seems like it's something just busy work. They're just kind of putting stuff in to check the boxes, particularly on something like this. Versus you're
talking about like just kind of pulse check, like check-ins on a weekly basis. Is that what you mean?
Sort of. They tend to be an hour long, and so it's really, they're there for a purpose. And so on every week, it should be addressed. I mean, your goal is to be helping every employee be the best they possibly can, constantly help them improve. And iteration, is the way to do that fastest. So I see every single week, not a single week should go by where any opportunity is missed to help someone improve, whether they're on the lagging side or they're the superstar trying to do better. If that superstar is going fast, they're running into problems that they're trying to take on, and you can give impactful advice. If someone's lagging every week, you should be catching those things and immediately be giving it. I think quarterly is too big. Plus, I think a piece of paper, just people don't necessarily aren't truthful, and sometimes they just see it as busy work.
Just out of interest, how big is your team?
Total of about 38, but only 26 of them are full-time.
Okay. The way I see that is like an hour a week with all employees. All I hear is money. That makes me feel nervous because, I mean, maybe that's just me. I understand where you're coming from, and I'm sure that approach works really well. At the end of the day, it's an approach that has to work for your agency. I guess that comes down to usability and whether you're happy to lose 26 or whatever hours it is, and if you're going to lose like a full day or whatever, fucking 3 days a week or something like that.
Brian, you posted Radical Candor like right after I did when I forgot who was talking before, but I honestly feel that if you build a culture around Radical Candor where you're open and honest and they know where it's coming from, where when you give feedback, whether it's good or bad, that it's coming from a place of love and care, to me, that makes the process of giving them that sheet a lot easier. Because yes, if you look at it as the sheet in itself, it's hard for them to fill it out. But if they understand that that sheet is really just part of a process, that really is part of what you do every day, and they have that confidence that they know if they have an issue in the weeds that they can come to you at any time, and if there's a matter that needs to be discussed, in between your quarterly conversation cadence and things like that, then that will happen too. I feel like that doesn't need to be as official and rigid as set. If everyone understands how you're going to be communicating and why you're communicating the way you are, like to me, like that's something that if they get you and the way that you're communicating, they're glad to give that feedback because they just see that as advancing the agenda.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd agree. And Ryan, I'm not, it's not for me to say whether what you're doing is right or wrong, because it comes down to your company and company culture and what works for you. I would say doing an IR call on a weekly basis with every single employee seems heavy-handed from my perspective, especially from a financial point of view. That's not to say that it's wrong. I think that you should absolutely be having weekly check-ins with all employees for department heads, not you. I mean, you'd be on the call the entire week. Totally, yeah, I got that. That's why I asked you how big is your team, because I'm like, Jesus Christ, are you actually getting time to do anything else? Like
I only meet with department heads and some important individuals that are on strategic pieces.
Which is smart.
But then the department heads, or sometimes it's a team lead, it's whoever's currently their mentor does that 1 hour meeting each week.
So presumably then, I mean, if you go off EOS, what EOS trip teaches, you should be doing like 4 to 6 people are actually reporting into you max.
Yeah, I don't follow that, I know.
But just for productivity. But I would say that you need to have weekly check-ins. I would probably say 15 to 30 minutes. Each team member should have weekly check-ins. There should be monthly kind of status reports. They're a little bit more official. The quarterly stuff, that document that I showed you, that is the basic bitch version. There's nothing fluffy or cuddly about that at all. Obviously, you would tailor it and brand it to your company. The reason for that is it is an official document. And I think that doing something officially where people actually have to work through it, it does seem a little bit corporate and a little bit square, but it absolutely works because it forces employees to really engage in the questions that they're being asked and answer them properly. Whether people are going to be honest or not is up to them. One of the things that I wanted to mention was there's a tool called Office Vibes. I don't know if anybody here uses it. A lot of the agencies that I work with, they absolutely rave about it. And they use that for a lot of their... What was it called? Office Vibes. I'll put it here, Office Vibes. I mean, I'm just going to put the name on it. The URL is probably like .com or .co.uk. But Office Vibes is a tool that a lot of agencies that I work with use. And they use that for kind of weekly check-ins and see how everybody's getting on and just get a sort of a sense check of where people's heads are at and how happy they are. So that seems to be a really good tool.
I was going to say, if you really wanted to do more meetings, I mean, you should probably, like you said, have them layered, Rachel, but you could do 15-minute meetings where it's like no small talk, nothing. You just say, all right, what can we talk about currently, and give them something actionable to walk away with. And you'd really have to focus. That'd be very hard for me to do, but it's something that I would consider doing.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, go for it, Sean.
So my team is super small compared to what most of you guys have talked about so far, but I would like to utilize something along these lines. We use Gusto for our HR and payroll, and they have something where every week, like as they turn in their payroll, they can, we'll ask them questions, et cetera. So if you could do, 3 or 4 automated questions, what would those be?
I just looked on the, what site was it? The Geekbot site. And they said, it looks like they automated it, but they say, what did you work on yesterday? What are you working on today? And what's your biggest holdup right now?
Yeah. Kind of a little bit like what Ryan was saying, wins, blockers, risks, and time. So I think like challenges, what you're working on. I think they're the main things. And this is, Sean, this is for you to do like at the end of every day, that people send you a kind of a recap. Is that what you're thinking?
I hesitate to do every day just because I don't want to come off as micromanaging, especially because we are a smaller team. But I was thinking weekly or bi-weekly. So I mean, I think even with I liked the wins, blockers, risks, and time. I wrote that down. I think even if I translated that into a weekly or bi-weekly question, it would be beneficial.
Can I say something?
Go for it,
Please.
Alicia.
I think being on the other side of you guys,
As
slacking
an employee, not as
as
on a Zoom
employee,
call.
sorry, as an employee, giving my agenda on a daily basis to me seems micromanaging, although it's not trying to be micromanaging. I just feel like it does because I know what I'm working on and what I have to work on. I shouldn't have to tell you on a daily basis what I'm doing. If I don't have work to do, I will tell you I do not have work to do. That to me, I feel like is a good trusting relationship between manager and employee. So then we trust that you believe and know that we're doing the work and don't feel like we're getting questioned on every single thing that we do.
Felicia, that's great feedback. One of the issues that I have is I don't have oversight on every single thing each person is doing. So I don't need them to check in with me and say, can I do this? Can I do this? But I do want them to just say, hey, I worked on this thing today. So at least I know. Is that what you're talking about, being micromanaging, or just the surveying of what have you done? What are you going to do? What's your problem?
I think it's more the surveying, like, what have you done? What have you done? What are you going to do? Because to me, that's like, okay, I'm doing my work, whatever I need to do for the week or whatever it is. I'm telling you what I need to do. If there's something that I know that needs to be worked on, or I need extra work because I've completed all my tasks, then I would reach out. But I do understand your point as well. I think
what would you recommend? What would you want? Because the problem I might also have is, am I assessing if someone is productive or not? And if they're not productive, that would be an issue. But I'm guessing that you're a productive person and that you want to get your shit done. So like, what would you prefer?
Yeah, so I would probably do weekly goals instead of daily. Weekly goals, like, this is what we're going to work on for the week. And if you need guidance, this is what you can Slack me or whatever it is on the guidance that you need for whatever specific tasks. If you run out of your tasks, then let's figure out what we can regroup and what else you can work on for the rest of the week. So then there's that trust, but then there's also that freedom to say, okay, I know what I'm doing. I know what I need to work on. And then if I need help, I can always go to Michael for anything.
Okay, that's awesome. I'm going to implement that as soon as possible, because I want to hear from people too. And sometimes I don't have a meeting with every single person, but I want to know, what do you need help with? I want to be able to help you and be there, not from a micromanager standpoint, but just to be able to say, I'm here to help and support you. So let me do that if I can.
Yeah, like if I run out of work, I'll tell Nihar, like, I have no work. Tell me what to do. Like, what can I work on? Because I don't like being bored. I go stir crazy when I'm bored. So like you said, I like to get shit done. So I'm like, give me work to do and I'll tell you what I'm working on, but this is what I'm focused on for the day. So just let it be. And when I run out of work, I'll let you know, because I know what I have to do.
Okay. If you ever get bored, I'll just give you my Uber conference line and you can just hop on and we'll chat for like 2 hours or something.
That sounds fantastic.
I've got a fuckload of admin I can send your way, Felicia.
Yeah, you might get lost.
Okay, well, we ran over, but this was good. I know there's some new faces here. So appreciate everybody making it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send a follow-up email on the back of this with the recording for those who jumped in and out or couldn't make it. I'll send that document over. On these calls, I try to, if there's some sort of resource I think is going to be useful, I'll send that over. If anybody needs help with like performance improvement plans or whatever, I do have some templates for that, so I can bang them as well. Just let me know. And otherwise, I will upload this recording, pop it on YouTube at the end of the week. It's actually my birthday on Friday, so I'm going to be off, so it'll probably be next week. I'm going to be outliving Jesus.
Wow, you're still 25, eh? Good for you.
So Jesus died at 33, so I will outlive him, which means I'll be hitting 34. Oh, Michael, quick math. I'm so smart. Me. I can
have one.
I can plus one. Yeah, so I'll be outliving the big JC. So that's pretty exciting. If I don't die by tomorrow night, please.
What would you do if I sent you nails in the mail?
Oh my God.
Well, to be honest, my husband would be delighted because he's got about 12 toolboxes. And the second thing, like he has a whole cabinet with like toolboxes of different types of nails and screws, and like we'll go into like a hardware store and he'd be like, oh, they look useful. And I'm like, why the fuck have you just bought another 200 fucking nails? What are you gonna use that for? And also the second thing is nothing ever gets delivered here, ever.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah, exactly. So in Gran Canaria, nothing gets received. So people are like, oh, I sent you a gift, and then I get something from the customs. Yeah, we returned that. And I'm just like, cheers, mate. Happy birthday.
No live animals. Gotcha.
No live animals, no, apart from me. They don't have boxes big enough for me, to be honest. So it might not be, if it's not tomorrow, then it'll be early next week, because I'm going to be offline, booked little villa, little swimming pool, and I'm going to be like a prune, balls deep in banana and peanut butter filled croissants is my week.
Man, I need to get out to the Canaries.
Yeah, I actually have a group of agencies coming here at the end of next month, but at the end of the year, I'm going to put something on for agencies everywhere. So everybody can do like one and done, one trip, massive fucking blowout. I don't want to make people feel jealous, but at the end of next month, I've actually rented a yacht.
Wow.
We do things, I'm a classy bitch. Just because I have a mouth like a pirate, I am a classy motherfucker.
Doesn't mean I can't drink champagne on a boat.
Yeah, exactly.
I know, but you would need to be invited, Michael, so whatever.
Yeah, it's okay. I have a canoe that I can jump in.
Yeah, exactly.
The canoe. Me and Michael will come on the canoe.
Yeah, Felicia will come drink light beer with me on my canoe there.
Yeah, you could just fill the bath up a wee bit and have a paddle there with a Bud Light.
Dirty Ohio River water.
Yeah. So we're renting a yacht, going to do a little boat cruise, sunset boat cruise, which is going to be super exciting, and have some of my agencies coming over. And then at the end of the year, I'm going to do something bigger, so it's going to be even more fun. And I'll invite all of the agencies that I know from all over the world, and they can come to Gran Canaria and live the island life for like a week. And fucking the tequila here is legit. So it's like tequila that doesn't give you a hangover, which is pretty insane. Dangerous, but insane. So I'm looking forward to that. So anyway, I'll follow up with the recording. Anybody who wants the details about the boot camp, I'll let you know. I'm going to sort that out all next week. And whatever you need, just give me a shout.
Thank you for putting this on. Thanks for everyone participating too.
Thanks, Rachel.
Have a happy birthday, Rachel.
Nice meeting everybody.
I will.
Nice.
Take it easy.
Bye.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that roundtable. As promised, I said I would finish up at the end with just a little bit more about how I build technologies into my tech stack with my agencies, and more specifically, how that can work with Gorgeous. So if you don't know a little bit about Gorgeous, overall, they massively streamline the customer journey. The technology automates about 20% of FAQs, which it's there to help reduce support costs. And all of that stuff combined is a fantastic way, a proven way to increase customer loyalty. If you know anything about what's going on in the industry right now, loyalty and retention is one of the top topics in e-commerce. So anything that is built around that topic of retention and retention marketing, which you've probably heard a lot about. In my experience, perfect example, we had a brand that we worked with that were very busy brand. They grew, Instagram brand, grew very, very busy, and we worked directly with the e-com manager. And I could never get stuff through to her. I was constantly chasing her all the time, just constantly chasing her. And I would take her out for lunches and dinners and drinks, and I'm like, what's going on, Zoe? I'm constantly sending these messages and never hear back. And she said, I am balls deep in support, dealing with customer support and dealing with like returns and inquiries and blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, oh, okay, let me figure out a solution that's going to work. So then I found out about Gorgeous, and I introduced Gorgeous, the technology, into that brand. And it was a game changer for me, building retainers around the clients. It was a game changer because I was able to push things through with this e-com manager so much easier and quicker. And after that, a bit of a light bulb went off, and I was like, okay, this is going to be a key part of my tech stack for the clients that we're working with. And I put that when clients moved from projects into retainers, I recommended that. Very few of them said no, to be honest. It was a really easy sell. It's not really a sell, it's a recommendation. and it was a game changer. So not only that, anybody who knows Gorgeous will tell you that. They're great partners. They're a fantastic team. They're super good fun. In fact, I have one of the team coming over next month to join me at a retreat I'm hosting here in Gran Canaria, so that should be super cute. And additionally, one of my agencies actually uses the technology for their inbound inquiries and uses it pretty effectively. So there's lots of different use cases for this, more than perhaps what people realize. It's more than just help desk or support. If you're working with brands and you're working with them on retention and increasing loyalty and branding, I would say you should give this a crack. So at the end, there'll be slides at the end of this now with some of the partner information. If you want to know any more about them, again, this is not a sales pitch. This is a genuine recommendation because I have worked with them for years, as do a lot of my brands. Give me a shout and I'm happy to make an introduction, or there should be a link here that you can go and just sign up and get on a call with them. See ya.